Hello and welcome. I am Christopher Jon Bjerknes. It is July 15th, 2022, and I'm very pleased and excited to announce that I have a new theory which upends traditional views of the Quran and the apocryphal Gospel of Pseudo-Matthew. The authors of Christianity and Islam understood that Jesus Christ was a mythological figure, so they went in search of the best ways to depict him when crafting their stories, which would convey the message they sought to impart in the minds of their readers. In doing so, they borrowed heavily from many various sources. Since there was no real history of Jesus Christ, they were free to depict him in ways which would best express their belief that Jesus was the serpent in the Garden of Eden who gave humanity gnosis or knowledge in the form of the fruit of the tree of knowledge. The question arises, what kind of tree was that? I have a new theory that cracks the specific codes of the apocryphal Gospel of Pseudo-Matthew and the passages within the Quran which are based upon the same Christology that Jesus is the serpent from the tree of knowledge in the Garden of Eden. I have deciphered the fact that these works cryptically portray Jesus as the serpent in the tree of knowledge or gnosis. They present the tree of knowledge itself as a date palm and dates as the biblically forbidden fruit which instills knowledge and starts off as bitter sprouts until they ripen and become sweet dates. Palm trees in the desert are an indication that there is a water supply present, and the waters feeding the tree of knowledge are the waters below of primordial chaos. The standard view of the Quran is that it contains no tree of knowledge, but I have proven that it does, and that the author of the Quran meant to reveal that Jesus is Satan by having him appear together with the tree of knowledge. Pseudo-Matthew goes further and unmasks Jesus as the devil by having him commission angels to propagate an offshoot of the date palm of the tree of knowledge in paradise, or the Garden of Eden, just as Noah replanted the tree of knowledge in the form of a grapevine after the flood. There are various legends and traditions as to what type of tree the tree of knowledge really is. In many Jewish legends, it appears as a grapevine or as a fig tree. But in the Quran and in Pseudo-Matthew, it appears as a date palm. And that's significant because when you see a palm tree in the desert, it indicates that there's a source of water. So one is attracted to that tree when seeking out the waters of primordial chaos and the knowledge that those waters can instill. It was Satan who originally planted the tree of knowledge in the Garden of Eden, as Pseudo-Matthew describes Jesus as Satan by having him plant an offshoot of the tree of knowledge in paradise. Date palms are one of the few palm trees which can be propagated from the sucker shoots that rise up from their roots and form around the ball of the trunk at the base. So farmers can cut off these offshoots and plant them. And that is what Satan, Samael, does by planting a date palm in the Garden of Eden. The Gnostics viewed Satan, who gave knowledge to mankind, as the good and righteous God. The demiurge Yahweh, on the other hand, tried to keep humanity from obtaining knowledge and was viewed as a villainous God in the eyes of the earliest Christians who were Gnostics. The Quran picks up on this Gnostic theme and modifies it by making the tree of immortality, the tree of life, the bearer of the forbidden fruit instead of the tree of knowledge. The Quran does not take a negative view of knowledge. It takes a very positive view of knowledge, as did the Gnostics. Judaism, on the other hand, the Torah, portrays knowledge as a curse which brings death. Like the Gnostic manuscripts, the Quran praises knowledge. The Torah portrayed knowledge as a curse that brings death to the nations until it becomes ripe after the work of what would become Christianity and Islam has been accomplished. It is the Christians and Muslims who tend the tree of knowledge until the fruit ripens. Christians and Muslims are destined to be cursed and perish due to their knowledge, which will eventually become ripe and nourish Israel when Israel consumes the Leviathan of Esau and Christianity and the behemoth of Ishmael and Islam after they battle and destroy one another. And the knowledge and technology of the tree of knowledge given to them by the serpent and Jesus Christ produces terrible weapons of war, which they use to destroy one another. So initially, knowledge is a curse, but it also produces the knowledge of the science and technology, which will enable the Israelites to become immortal androgynes and to replicate themselves in laboratories and spare themselves the pains of giving birth to children, of growing old, and of dying. The wine of the grapevine will then be ripe and kosher to consume. The bitter, unripe dates will then have become sweet and nourishing. I will show you the proof which supports my unique theory in this presentation. My books, which you can find at my website, cjbbooks.com, contain my additional novel insights and theories of the Abrahamic faiths and the facts which support them. I'll begin with the Quran, then I will address Pseudo-Matthew and the Akkadian and Greek myths which inspired some Christians and Muslims to portray the tree of knowledge as a date palm which propagates from its offshoots. Again, the prevalent early Christian and Judaic tradition is that it was a grapevine, which is why Jesus is portrayed as a grapevine, and the Eucharist of his blood is portrayed as wine. These are two illustrated drawings which portray a story told in the Quran. And I am going to read those stories, but first I want to preface that by showing that the date palm represents the tree of knowledge, which in the Zohar is called the tree of death, because it brings with it the curse of death until the fruits that it bears become ripe. In the case of Pseudo-Matthew and the Quran, those fruits are dates, which eventually ripen and become sweet. And it is Jesus who returns, who was initially the serpent in the Garden of Eden, who returns to provide those ripened sweet dates of knowledge to humanity. Initially, he planted them in paradise from an offshoot of the date palm. Jesus' mother in the Quran deviates from the standard Christian view. She is still Mary, but she is the Maryam who is the sister of Harun, who is Aaron in the Old Testament. And she is also the sister, of course, of Musa, who is Moses in the Old Testament. And they are all the sons and daughters of Imran, who is Amram in the Torah. She represents Eve in the Garden of Eden by the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Isa, or Asa, son of Maryam, is Jesus in the Quran, and she is the son of Maryam, who is the sister of Moses and Aaron, and the daughter of Amram. Jesus is the serpent in the Garden of Eden, offering his mother Eve, Mary, the sweetened fruit of the date palm as the knowledge, the gnosis, which mankind requires to ascend the 7 planets in the 7 heavens and return to the gods which emanated the souls of mankind. This is the standard view of the Quran, that the souls enter the 7 heavens after death, and that all souls must undergo death. But I am providing the new, fuller interpretation of these passages and how they relate to Gnosticism, Neoplatonism, Platonism, and the Mithraic belief that the soul fell through the 7 planets and then must return to heaven through the 7 planets. At the bottom of the palm tree, we see the waters of primordial chaos below. The waters of primordial chaos are associated with Satan, they are associated with wisdom, and they are associated with knowledge. Jesus is knowledge, gnosis, and his female aspect is the waters of primordial chaos, which is Sophia, or knowledge. In the Gnostic system, Jesus on the cross represents the serpent on the tree of knowledge. The serpent on the tree of knowledge offered Eve and Adam that knowledge as its fruits, and Jesus offers humanity the fruits of knowledge while hanging from the cross. He is the source of gnosis, or knowledge. He is the serpent on the tree of knowledge, and his cross is the tree of knowledge. I go to great lengths to explain all of these facts in my books, Beware the World to Come, Rise Above, and my book series, Satanic Secrets of Jesus Christ. And this presentation is the result of the research I am conducting for my forthcoming Volume 3, Jesus Christ and the Chaos Conf. The passages in the Quran, which are the basis for this illustrated drawing of Mary by the date palm and Jesus, repeat a legend of Jesus and Mary being refreshed under a palm tree, which was probably derived from the Gospel of Pseudo-Matthew, chapters 20 to 22. The Christian, 20 to 21, actually, I believe. The Christian myth in the Gospel of Pseudo-Matthew is a retelling of the Greek myth of Leto giving birth to Apollo under a palm tree, and I'll explain all of that later on in this presentation. The Quran in Surah 19, verse 23 states, "And the pains of childbirth drove her to the trunk of a palm tree. She said, 'Oh, I wish I had died before this and was in oblivion, forgotten.' But he called her from below, 'Do not grieve, your Lord has provided beneath you a stream. And shake toward you the trunk of the palm tree, and it will drop upon you ripe, fresh dates.'" That woman giving birth is Maryam, sister of Moses, daughter of Amram, and mother of Jesus in the Quran. It is Jesus as the serpent offering Maryam, who is Eve, the dates of the palm tree. The palm tree is the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. So I may be the first person who has discovered the existence of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil within the Quran. And it is a date palm, just as it is a date palm in Pseudo-Matthew. And the legend of giving birth under a date palm is syncretically derived from the Greek myth of Leto giving birth to Apollo under a date palm. And again, in the desert, when you see a palm tree, you're drawn towards it because it signifies the fact that there must be a local water source nourishing that palm tree. And that becomes the primordial waters of chaos, in which the Holy Spirit descends as the goddess Asherah, as a dove. And that primordial water of chaos provides nourishment in the desert in which you have no knowledge, in which you have forgotten the gods that bore your soul. And you must drink the waters of primordial chaos and become baptized in the Holy Spirit, so that you become aware of the higher gods, the gods above Yalta-Baoth, who is Yahweh, the God of Israel, who is the evil demiurge. And you must realize that above the 7 planets is original primordial chaos, which reappears as the primordial chaos of the waters below. And your soul must ascend through those 7 planets back up to the highest world, which is the world of Tohu, the world of chaos. And all of that mythology is taken directly from Platonic philosophy, which is based upon the Mithraic beliefs in the 7 heavens, the descent of the soul through the planets, and the reascent of the soul through the planets. And all of that has remanifested itself in Kabbalah, where you have to give passwords to pass through the 7 gates of those 7 planets, so that your soul can reascend to the highest part of the soul, which is the primordial chaos above, as opposed to the primordial waters of chaos below. This represents a depiction of the Quranic verses which establish the fact that the Quran portrays Jesus as the son of Miriam, Isa or Asa, son of Maryam, and that Miriam is the sister of Harun, Aaron, and Musa, Moses, and the daughter of Imran, Amram. Surah Miriam, 19:28. O sister of Aaron, your father was not an indecent man, nor was your mother unchaste. Ali Imran 3:35. Remember when the wife of Imran said, My Lord, I dedicate what is in my womb entirely to your service, so accept it from me. You alone are truly the all-hearing, all-knowing. Ali Imran 3:36. When she delivered, she said, My Lord, I have given birth to a girl, and Allah fully knew what she had delivered. And the male is not like the female. I have named her Mary, and I seek your protection for her, and her offspring from Satan, the accursed. At Tarim 66:12. There is also the example of Mary, the daughter of Imran, who guarded her chastity. So we breathed into her womb through our angel Gabriel. She testified to the words of her Lord and his scriptures, and was one of the sincerely devout. The Quranic theology that Jesus was born under a palm tree, and that he offered Mary, his mother Mary, the fruits of that palm tree and the waters beneath the palm tree, are the same Christology that is presented in the Gospel of Pseudo-Matthew, which is likely an older work derived from the cult of Mary. There was an ancient church between Jerusalem and Bethlehem, which served as the model for the Dome of Rock, in which the cult of Mary worshipped Mary. The Gospel of Pseudo-Matthew, chapter 20, states, And it came to pass on the 3rd day of their journey, while they were walking, that the Blessed Mary was fatigued by the excessive heat of the sun in the desert. And seeing a palm tree, she said to Joseph, "Let me rest a little under the shade of this tree." Again, in the desert, when you see a palm tree, it indicates that there may be an oasis and a water source. So this is symbolic of their quest for the knowledge, the gnosis of primordial chaos, the waters of primordial chaos below, which allow the soul to ascend the 7 planets to the highest world of Tohu above, the primordial chaos above. Joseph therefore made haste and led her to the palm, and made her come down from her beast. And as the Blessed Mary was sitting there, she looked up to the foliage of the palm and saw it full of fruit, and said to Joseph, "I wish it were possible to get some of the fruit of this palm." And Joseph said to her, "I wonder that thou sayest this, when thou seest how high the palm tree is, and that thou thinkest of eating its fruit. I am thinking more of the want of water, because the skins are now empty, and we have none wherewith to refresh ourselves and our cattle." Again, this water is the primordial waters of chaos below, in which Christians are baptized in the gnosis that Jesus provides. And Jesus baptizes in the Holy Spirit, Asherah, the goddess of Gnosis, who is Satan. Then the child Jesus, with a joyful countenance, reposing in the bosom of his mother, said to the palm, "O tree, bend thy branches, and refresh my mother with thy fruit." That is the serpent Satan offering Eve the fruit, the forbidden fruit in Judaism of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. But in Christianity, original Christianity, and in the Quran, that fruit is not forbidden. It is instead in the Quran the fruit of the tree of life, which is forbidden. And in Gnosticism, that tree is also Jesus Christ. And immediately at these words, the palm bent its top down to the very feet of the Blessed Mary, and they gathered from it fruit, with which they were all refreshed. So this is making a loving, benevolent story out of Satan, the good god of Gnosticism, providing humanity with the forbidden fruit of knowledge which the evil god Yahweh had forbade them to eat, the evil demiurge Yaldabaoth. And after they had gathered all its fruits, it remained bent down, waiting the order to rise from him who had commanded it to stoop. Then Jesus said to it, "Raise thyself, O palm tree, and be strong, and be the companion of my trees, which are in the paradise of my Father. And open from thy roots a vein of water, which has been hid in the earth, and let the waters flow, so that we may be satisfied from thee." And it rose up immediately, and at its roots there began to come forth a spring of water, exceedingly clear and cool and sparkling. And when they saw the spring of water, they rejoiced with great joy, and were satisfied, themselves and all their cattle and their beasts, wherefore they gave thanks to God. So the palm tree attracted Mary and Joseph to the waters of primordial chaos, and to the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and the serpent Jesus offered them as Adam and Eve this forbidden fruit of knowledge. Chapter 21 of the Gospel of Pseudo-Matthew. And on the day after, when they were setting out thence, and in the hour in which they began their journey, Jesus turned to the palm and said, "This privilege I give thee, O palm tree, that one of thy branches be carried away by my angels and planted in the paradise of my Father. This is Samael, Satan, Jesus Christ, planting the tree of the knowledge of good and evil in the Garden of Eden. And again, date palms are one of the only forms of palm tree which can be propagated from its offshoots in this manner. And this blessing I will confer upon thee, that it shall be said of all who conquer in any contest, you will have attained the palm of victory. In the ancient world, among the Romans and Greeks, victors in war, victors in sport, would carry a branch from a palm tree as a symbol of their victory. And while he was thus speaking, behold, an angel of the Lord appeared and stood upon the palm tree. And recall that they carried palm trees when Jesus entered Jerusalem. And this is symbolic of the fact that he represents the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And taking off one of its branches, let me reread that whole sentence. And while he was thus speaking, behold, an angel of the Lord appeared and stood upon the palm tree. And taking off one of its branches, flew to heaven with the branch in his hand. And when they saw this, they fell on their faces and became, as it were, dead. And Jesus said to them, why are your hearts possessed with fear? Do you not know that this palm, which I have caused to be transferred to paradise, shall be prepared for all the saints in the place of delights, as it has been prepared for us in this place in the wilderness? And they were filled with joy, and being strengthened, they all rose up. The Greek Apocalypse of Baruch, also known as Third Baruch, reveals the fact that it was Samael who planted the forbidden tree of the knowledge of good and evil in the Garden of Eden. So this portrayal in Pseudo-Matthew that Jesus planted the tree in paradise cryptically reveals the fact that Jesus is Samael, who is the devil. And I said, I pray thee, show me which is the tree which led Adam astray. And the angels said to me, it is the vine which the angel Samael planted, whereat the Lord God was angry, and he cursed him and his plant. Well, on this account he did not permit Adam to touch it. And therefore, etc. Moving on from 3rd Baruch, chapter 3, verse 8, to 3rd Baruch, chapter 4, verses 9 through 17. The devil, being envious, deceived him through the vine. And I, Baruch, said, since also the vine has been the cause of such great evil, and is under judgment of the curse of God, and was the destruction of the first created, how is it so useful? This is an Egyptian belief that grapevines initially erupted from the earth when those who fought against God were killed, their blood spilled upon the ground, and from that grapevines emerged. The Egyptians took a very negative view of wine, which Judaism adopted. There are many passages in the Old Testament condemning wine as sinful. Wine imparts intoxication, which represents chaos of the mind. The mind becomes disordered when it becomes intoxicated with wine. The Greeks and Romans took a very different view of this, and the god Dionysus became a joyful god who gave mankind this intoxicating, chaotic, delightful experience of drinking wine. So the Israelites saw wine as something of the nations and not of the Israelites. And they viewed the knowledge that it provided as a curse that would curse the nations to become knowledgeable and skillful in weapons of war, and that these weapons of war would cause the nations to destroy one another. And at that point, the knowledge would then become ripe. The fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil would then become ripe and kosher for Israelites to consume. And the way in which they would consume it is by celebrating the blood that was spilled as the wine by the Leviathan and the behemoth of Christianity and Islam, consuming one another in battle with their terrible weapons of war that the knowledge of Satan had provided to them. And this would be a great feast, culminating their battle against the nations and celebrating the commencement of the Messianic age. Baruch continues, "And the angel said, Thou askest aright. When God caused the deluge upon the earth and destroyed all flesh, and 409,000 giants, and the water rose 15 cubits above the highest mountains, then the water entered into paradise and destroyed every flower, but it removed wholly without the bounds the shoot of the vine and cast it aside. That vine is the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. That paradise is the Garden of Eden." So what this is saying is that the tree of the knowledge of good and evil survived the flood and was initially planted by the devil Samael. "And when the earth appeared out of the water, and Noah came out of the ark, he began to plant of the plants which he found. But he also found the shoot of the vine, and he took it, and was reasoning in himself, What then is it? And I came and spake to him the things concerning it. And he said, Shall I plant it, or what shall I do? Since Adam was destroyed because of it, let me not also meet with the anger of God because of it. And saying these things, he prayed that God would reveal to him what he should do concerning it. And when he had completed the prayer, which lasted 40 days, very significant number with Moses and Jesus and the Israelites as well, representing both days and years, and having besought many things and wept, he said, Lord, I entreat thee to reveal to me what I shall do concerning this plant. But God sent his angels Sarasael, and said to him, Arise, Noah, and plant the shoot of the vine. For thus saith the Lord, Its bitterness shall be changed into sweetness, and its curse shall become a blessing, and that which is produced from it shall become the blood of God. And as through it the human race obtain condemnation, so again through Jesus Christ, the Emmanuel, God among us, will they receive in him the upward calling and entry into paradise. Know therefore, that may be a Christian imposition. Know therefore, O Baruch, that as Adam through this very tree obtained condemnation and was divested of the glory of God, so also the men who now drink insatiably the wine which is begotten of it, transgress worse than Adam, and are far from the glory of God, and are surrendering themselves to the eternal fire. For no good comes through it. For those who drink it, surfeit, do these things. Drink it to surfeit, do these things. Neither does a brother pity his brother, nor a father his son, nor children their parents. But from the drinking of wine come all evils, such as murders, adulteries, fornications, perjuries, theft, and such like, and nothing good is established by it. Wine in Christianity is a poison which the Christians are duped into consuming as the Eucharist, and it kills off the Christians, which is Jesus' role as Satan, to kill off the Christians. Muslims are also forbidden to drink wine, strictly forbidden to drink wine, and they inherited the Egyptian and the Judaic view of wine as a curseful drink, as an evil drink, which inspires chaos and intoxication, that destroys knowledge, intellect, and clear thinking, which destroys order in the universe. And as a body decays or becomes intoxicated, it loses its holy order, which is why the Egyptians sought to maintain order and life in an afterlife. And that is what Christ promised. In contrast to the Christians' interpolations into 3rd Baruch, the Zohar makes clear the true meaning of these legends of Noah. And Noah is portrayed as another satanic figure, like Jesus, who replanted, like Samael, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, which is called the tree of death in the Zohar, after the flood. So Noah, as Samael, as Satan, restored evil to the world. But that was a necessary function, because ultimately that fruit will become ripe, and it will enable the Israelites to slay the evil god Yaltabaoth, Yahweh the God of Israel, and to crown Satan as master of the universe. And then the waters below will rise to the waters above, and the earth will become like the earth in heaven. The Egyptians had a mythology that there was a parallel earth to the earth in heaven, and that ultimately these two earths have to be brought together. And the Israelites inherited that Egyptian mythology. And that is brought about by the ripening of knowledge, by the ripening of the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil, which in Judaism and Christianity, earliest Christianity, was viewed as a grapevine, but which in Pseudo-Matthew, the cult of Mary, and in the Quran became a date palm. The original or the oldest roots of this mythology, which have been found by archaeologists, were in the immediate post-Akkadian period, in what has been dubbed the Adam and Eve cylinder seal. In this, you can see Adamic and Eve-like figures seated beside a date palm, holding out their hands to receive the fruit of knowledge from that date palm, and that is being given to them by the serpent. Again, this was a cylinder, so that snake rests between the backs of Adam and Eve. And I will read the theory, this original theory given by George Smith in his book, The Chaldean Account of Genesis, which was published initially in 1876. It is clear that the dragon of the sea, or dragon of Tiamat, is connected with the fall like the serpent in the book of Genesis, and in fact is the equivalent of the serpent. The name of the dragon is not written phonetically, but by two monograms, which probably mean the scaly one or animal covered with scales. This description, of course, might apply either to a fabulous dragon, a serpent, or a fish. Think of the Leviathan in the Bible, and think of the age of Pisces of Jesus Christ as the Leviathan fish. There are two of these Leviathans, the holy Leviathan of light and the evil Leviathan of darkness. Jesus Christ represents the evil Leviathan of darkness, and Yahweh represents the holy Leviathan of light. In some cases, however, the early Babylonian seals, which contain devices taken from these legends, more closely approached the Genesis story. One striking and important specimen of early type in the British Museum collection has two figures sitting on each side of the tree, holding out their hands to the fruit, while at the back of one is stretched a serpent. We know well that in these early sculptures, none of these figures were chance devices, but all represented events or supposed events and figures in their legend. Thus it is evident that a form of the story of the fall, similar to that of Genesis, was known in early times in Babylon. Again, what was found was a cylinder, which would then be rolled into clay and leave the imprint, which you see in the figures that appear in the Chaldean account of Genesis. And I believe all of these things are still on display in the British Museum, and the British Museum disputes the accounts given by George Smith, but I think he hit the nail on the head. And I think that this is where Pseudo-Matthew and the Quran ultimately derived the idea that the tree of the knowledge of good and evil was a date palm. The dragon, which in the Chaldean account of the creation leads man to sin, is the creature of Tiamat, the living principle of the sea and of chaos, and he is an embodiment of the spirit of chaos. Again, he lives in the sea. The seas are the primordial waters of chaos below. An embodiment of the spirit of chaos or disorder, which was opposed to the deities at the creation of the world. That deity at the creation of the world was the demiurge Yaldabaoth, who is Yahweh, the God of Israel. Muslims and Christians serve as chaos, as Satan, accusing the Jews for abandoning and corrupting the Torah and the book of the Creator God, the demiurge. It is clear that the dragon is included in the curse for the fall, and that the gods invoke on the head of the human race all the evils which afflict humanity. Wisdom and knowledge shall injure him. Line 22. Again, that's the ancient mythology, that wisdom and knowledge are a curse, a destructive curse, which leads to weaponry that causes men and women to kill off one another. He shall have family quarrels, shall submit to tyranny. Think again of the end times prophecies of Christianity and Islam, as found in Matthew 24, I believe it's Mark 13, and Luke 21, all of which are based upon these very ancient mythologies that chaos ultimately triumphs over order through entropy and by absorbing the energy of the light of the God of order, of Yahweh, of the sun, of Ra, of Aten, of the Egyptians. And at that time, chaos begins to shine and triumphs over order, and humanity is free to utilize its knowledge to refashion chaos in whatever form it wants. And the Israelites will then slay both Yahweh and Satan, and themselves become gods and become rulers of chaos who can impose their will on chaos. He shall not eat the fruit of his labor. He shall be disappointed in his desires. He shall pour out useless prayer. He shall have trouble of mind and body. He shall commit future sins. These are all the eschatological beliefs that the Abrahamic faith inherited from these ancient Babylonian myths and Sumerian myths and Akkadian myths, but primarily they inherited it through the Hesiodic Homeric myths, which said that in the Iron Age, all of these things would happen as chaos finally overwhelmed order, and the Golden Age gave way to the Silver Age, the Bronze Age, the Heroic Age, and ultimately the Iron Age. The end of the Iron Age was supposedly when Jesus Christ appeared, and Jesus Christ was to be the salvation of mankind, to rescue him from this degradation of humanity into pure chaos. But all of that was a deception which was imposed upon the nations to lead them into worshiping Jesus, who was portrayed as their salvation, but is instead Satan, who will ultimately reap the harvest of the Gentiles, slay them all, and give their souls to the Israelites when the Israelites feast on the Leviathan of Esau, the behemoth of Ishmael, and drink the wine, which is their blood, which is their soul, and inherit that soul. All of this was brought fresh into the minds of the Judaists of Alexandria by the Greek mythology of the birth of Apollo underneath a palm tree, and that is what carried along this mythology along to the authors of the apocryphal Gospel of Pseudo-Matthew and the Koran. There is also the mythology of Hercules in the garden of Hesperides beneath the golden apple tree, in which there is a serpent, and Hercules appears as Adam together with Eve. So there is nothing original or God-inspired about all of these Abrahamic faiths. Instead, they are derived directly from Mesopotamian myths, Egyptian myths, and Greek mythologies, as well as the philosophy of Plato and the Mithraic mythologies of the Greek mystery religions, including the Eleusinian mythologies, the Samothracian mythologies, and the Orphic mythologies, in addition to the Mithraic mythologies of the Greek mystery religions. This is from Hesiod's Homeric myths, speaking about the birth of Apollo from Leto beneath the palm tree. Rejoice, blessed Leto, for you bear glorious children, the Lord Apollo and Artemis, who delights in arrows. They were twins. Apollo was the male, Artemis was the female. Her in Ortygia, and him in rocky Delos, as you rested against the great mass of the Scythian hill, hard by a palm tree, by the streams of Inopus. So see that this mythology of Apollo's birth incorporates the palm tree and the stream, which was viewed by the Gnostics and by the Quran as representing the palm tree as a date palm, providing the dates, which are the forbidden fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil in the Torah. But in the Quran, knowledge is viewed as something great and wonderful. And the streams are the waters of primordial chaos, in which Jesus and John the Baptist baptized people, Jesus in the Holy Spirit. And as soon as Eilithia, the goddess of sore travail, sets foot on Delos, the pains of birth seized Leto, and she longed to bring forth. So she cast her arms about a palm tree, and kneeled on the soft meadow, while the earth laughed for joy beneath. Then the child leaped forth to the light, and all the goddesses raised a cry. Straightway, great Phoebus, the goddess, washed you purely and cleanly with sweet water, and swathed you in a white garment of fine texture, new woven, and fashioned a golden band about you. Recall that in those Persian depictions of Esau, son of Mary, Asa, son of Maryam, you could see Jesus in all swaddled up. Now, Leto, do not give Apollo, bearer of the golden blade, her breast. Now Leto did not give Apollo, bearer of the golden blade, her breast, but Themis duly poured nectar and ambrosia with her divine hands, and Leto was glad because she had borne a strong son and an archer. This is my latest research, which I'm incorporating into volume 3 of my series, Satanic Secrets of Jesus Christ. It is based on many of the theories which appear in my books, Beware the World to Come, Rise Above the Gods Who Hate Us, and my book series, Satanic Secrets of Jesus Christ, which you can find at my website, CJBBooks.com. I am very grateful to you for watching this and helping me celebrate my new theory. Please check out my website. I think you'll find my books very innovative, instructive. I have created a entirely unique and original theology of Christianity, which I am now broadening to Islam. Please also donate. There will be links to my website and my PayPal donation page below in the description. I will see you next time. Bye-bye for now. See you later.